Let's talk about one of the most iconic moments in all of JJK, when Sukuna invokes his binding vow with Yuji. So for anybody that needs a refresher, this binding vow was made early on in the story, and it was right after Yuji had had his heart ripped out and was essentially dead. Sukuna agreed to heal Yuji and bring him back, but only if he could get control of Yuji's body for 60 seconds whenever he wanted it. In order to agree to this, Yuji made Sukuna promise not to hurt anyone during those 60 seconds, but Sukuna made Yuji agree to the fact that he would not remember even making this vow. So the vow was set, and the 60 seconds will only begin when Sukuna says the words "ENCHAIN." Now, for my anime onlys, we are in massive spoiler territory here. So if you want to know, I get it, but if you don't, get on out of here. First, let's just talk a little bit about the surrounding context of this moment that led Sukuna to choose now to invoke the ENCHAIN. So here we have Sumiki, which is Megumi's sister, and in this moment, Megumi had just given her points so that she could make a new rule in the culling game and leave, so she could be able to get out safely. However, we find out that this is no longer Sumiki. It is in fact Yorozu, because she is an incarnated sorcerer, one of the many that Kinjaku had made a binding vow with, and just so happened her vessel was Megumi's sister. So Yorozu drops this reveal in front of Megumi, Yuji, and Angel, and then takes off. Megumi, who is still obviously shook by this, is kind of dumbfounded, right? So meanwhile, Angel and Yuji take off after Yorozu. And that's when it happens. Sukuna mutters "ENCHAIN," and his 60 seconds of complete control begin. And this is where the biggest moment of controversy comes into play for this whole sequence. Sukuna knocks out Angel. So he's got her in the sleeper hold, maybe hitting the pressure points. I don't know, but she falls unconscious and he gently lays her down. Now, people have an issue with this because of the whole he can't harm anyone during the 60 seconds part of the binding vow. But is it considered harmful if you knock somebody unconscious but not in a violent or painful way? You decide. With Angel out of commission, it's just Sukuna and Megumi, and this is where Sukuna makes his big gamble. He's unsure if Yuji counts as part of the "do not harm anyone" portion of the vow, so he takes a risk and rips off Yuji's pinky finger, but nothing happens. It doesn't break the vow, so Sukuna thinks he's an absolute idiot for not including himself in it. It's at this point that Sukuna rushes over to Megumi, who's still basically in shock from this entire sequence of events, and shoves Yuji's pinky finger down his throat. Which brings us to this iconic moment, Sukuna incarnating in Megumi as his new vessel, someone who is unable to suppress him the way Yuji does. So why this moment? Well, Sukuna needed certain chess pieces to be in certain positions in order to make his move. He needed an opportunity to get Megumi as alone as possible, but even on top of that, he needed Megumi to be in a place where he really couldn't fight back against his possession, if you will. And so Megumi finding this out about his sister was the perfect opportunity to slip in there. And that brings us to this question from Adam, who wants to know basically, why was Sukuna able to just feed one finger to Megumi, but it was able to contain all of the fingers worth of Sukuna that Yuji had consumed? And that's because, one, Sukuna is just him. He has the power to choose his own vessel. We've been told that from Kinjaku earlier on in the manga, and in season 1 as well. It's from the moment where Mahito and Kinjaku are incarnating the Cursed Womb Death paintings. But even on top of that, the whole reason Sukuna is split up into 20 fingers in the first place is because Kinjaku taught him how to turn himself into a cursed object, and he intentionally split himself into 20 fingers, for the best results, basically. Much harder to take him out if there's 20 pieces you gotta find as opposed to one, right? So that was an intentional choice by him way back in the past. However, in this moment, he's not just trying to survive and traverse time, he's trying to switch vessels. So he's intentionally putting all of himself into one finger, which he knows how to do because he learned how from Kinjaku teaching him. So it's just that in that moment, Sukuna puts, I can't remember off the top of my head how many fingers he is at that point, but he puts the maximum number of his fingers just into Yuji's pinky. As for the second part of your question on did he grow his finger back using RCT, it depends on which specific moment you're talking about, because sometimes Gege just forgets to draw like certain injuries on Yuji, and then he'll correct it in later editions. Like he's been known to forget the scar or to accidentally draw the pinky when it should be gone. But if you're talking more recently, we do know that RCT is something Yuji can do now. And definitely regrowing body parts is like substantial RCT, but I think that Yuji could do that, especially considering it's just a pinky finger at this point. And then as far as to why it looks demonic, I think that's just representative of, the evil energy that Sukuna represents, right? Especially all of it condensed into one tiny finger like that. So yeah, there you have it. The infamous ENCHAIN moment. I cannot wait until this is animated just to see people lose their minds when this happens. Adam, thank you so much for the sponsor question today, man. I've gotten a lot of questions revolving around this whole thing, so I did want to do a little breakdown of it. And yeah, y'all let me know in the comments what you think about the angel part of this. Do you think that should have counted as harming somebody? I personally don't have a problem with it, but it was a little iffy. Anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one.